Hello, boys and ghouls. It is Friday the 13th, and so we are going to the dark side, to the trade candidates, the players the Magic probably shouldn't chase, but just might, today on Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is June 13th, 2025, Friday the 13th. Ooh. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I am the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com, credentialed member of the Orlando Magic media since the 2011 season. You can, of course, find me on Twitter at PhilipR_OMD and on Blue Sky at PhilipRR. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, we've talked about the names that we think the Magic are chasing because we like them. What about the names we don't like? The players we're not so sure about. We're going to go into those players today on Locked On Magic. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Whether we're your first listen of the day, whether we are part of your day, whether you're one of our everydayers, we truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Go check out Locked On Thunder and Locked On Pacers after we're done here to get you set for Game 4 of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. At this point, you know the names that we like, that most fans honestly like. Your Colin Sextons, your Anthony Simons, your Austin Reeves, your Kobe White. Those are the names we all like. The names that if the Magic acquired any of these players, they may not necessarily be the player that you support, that you think would be the number one guy on your list, but you'd be like, okay, I have no problems with that. Checks every box that we like. You know, maybe there are some flaws we need to work around, but all good on me. Contracts make sense. Role makes sense. Fit makes sense. Need makes sense. Let's do it. Let's roll. Let's rock on. Of course, this is the NBA. The obvious doesn't always happen. The obvious does not create interest. And if it was so obvious, why wouldn't it get done? Like Anthony Simons, for instance. We've been talking about him for 2 years. I did a podcast 2 years ago with Mike Richmond of Locked On Blazers. Got myself in some hot water on that podcast where we talked about Anthony Simons. And while I think things have changed perhaps now, it's still very true that if the Magic wanted Anthony Simons, he'd be on the team already. A lot of what we're going to talk about today are about where the Magic are willing to compromise in this quest to make their team better, to make the Magic a playoff team, to move on to the next phase. The question now becomes, what principles of there are they willing to compromise? And look, there was probably a point, and we may still honestly be in that point, where a player like Anthony Simons would be in this group of players. He's just so popular among Magic fans and someone that we've talked about so much. We've kind of slid him into that. Yeah, that's a reasonable thing. I grabbed him in the mock draft. And some of that is because Simons has this clear offensive skill, but what we don't know is whether he's a willing defender. He's never been asked to be a good defender. By some metrics, he is one of the worst defenders in the league. And if that's the case, why would Anthony Simons even be on the list? Because while the Magic are certainly willing to give up some defense to make their offense better, they're not bringing in someone that isn't going to commit on the defensive end. Jamal Mosley ain't going to play someone who isn't going to buy in defensively. And this is something the Magic are going to have to check out and something the Magic are going to have to really, really focus and work on with whoever they acquire. But this is where the Magic are sitting. The Magic are sitting in a place where they have to improve their offense, and they are presented with several imperfect options. We're going to start today then, not with what I have on my rundown over to my right, left. No, right, that way. I don't know which way is which. We're going to start then with, yes, every player we have talked about has a flaw. Anthony Simons, not known as a great defender, not known as a great playmaker. He is a scorer through and through. Colin Sexton, excellent defender, reputationally an excellent defender, good three-point shooter, good driver, not a great spot-up shooter, but not a self-shot creator, something the Magic probably need a little bit more of. Austin Reeves, really struggled in the playoffs the last 2 years, but excellent playmaker, decent shot creator. He's probably the best option of all these, but he's going to demand a $30 million a year contract, and I don't know if the Magic want to pay that. Kobe White, same deal. Kind of inconsistent, had that great run at the end of the season last year, spurty shooter. But is he the defender? Is he the point guard the Magic want? The point is to say that while there are a lot of seemingly obvious answers to the Magic's problems, a lot of seemingly obvious guys that we've all been talking about, we've all been thinking about, that does not mean that is the solution. That does not mean that is the answer. That does not mean that's what the Magic are going to do this offseason. And so we have to talk about perhaps some non-obvious answers. Perhaps some answers that will truly chill you to the bone. That will truly make you say, huh, that guy? Really? I don't like that guy. Guys that are truly, truly divisive. I'm serious. The Magic may not do what feels obvious. They may get beat on trade offers. They may not be able to make the pitch. They may not be willing to give up what it takes to get them. And so Orlando may have to settle for a flawed player, for a player who does not have that skill they want, or a player that makes some compromise somewhere where they aren't comfortable compromising. But here's the thing. The Magic must be bold. If the Magic are going to make the improvements that they want to make this season and take the step they're hoping to take, they can't be cowards. They can be Cedric Coward, but they can't be cowards. And that's harsh. That's strong language. But they can't play it safe either. This roster the Magic have, it works to an extent, but it clearly needs more. It clearly needs something to get over the hump. It clearly needs that injection of offense. It needs something else. It does not have enough. The Magic might be good enough as is to compete for the 4 or the 5 seed, but they're not winning the Eastern Conference with their group. Not when the Indiana Pacers could score 116 on the Thunder, or 119 on the Thunder, whatever it was on Wednesday. The Magic need more. And that means they might have to do something that makes me feel uneasy, that makes you feel uneasy, that makes everyone feel a little bit questionable. After all, most of us thought Kentavious Caldwell-Pope was the right move. And again, maybe he is. Maybe last year was a fluke and we don't need to worry about it. But that was an obvious move to add an elite shooter, an elite defender. And it didn't work. Not last year, at least. Maybe it'll work next year. Maybe we're too harsh on it. But it didn't work last year. It didn't fix the Magic's problems. And so the Magic might have to think outside of our box, outside of what we're thinking. And that's why I'm going to say 2 words together I did not think I would have to say on this podcast. And I'm going to have to say those 2 words and treat the idea seriously. Because guess what? Bovada says Magic have the top odds of acquiring this player. We're going to talk about it. I hope this isn't too scary. Jordan Poole. I'm going to let you sit on that for just a moment. We'll get to him coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at Olipop. Olipop is a new kind of soda made for people who love the classic taste of soda, but want something that supports their health, which is 2 to 5 grams of sugar and 9 grams of prebiotic fiber in every can. Olipop is reimagining soda in a way that's better for your gut. Traditional sodas are loaded with sugar like 39 grams in a regular Coke or 44 grams in an orange Fanta. Olipop flips that script with just a fraction of the sugar, no artificial sweeteners, and gut-friendly ingredients like OliSmart, a blend shown to support digestive and overall health. It's soda that tastes like the real thing, but actually does something good for your body. In fact, I'll go ahead and say this. I've got the Olipop right here. This is the vintage cola flavor. I haven't had soda. I haven't been a regular soda drinker since high school. I cut soda out of my life. I'll have a ginger ale here and there. They sent us these. And you'll have your chance to get a free Olipop here in a second. But I tried this vintage cola. I don't know if this is how cola is supposed to taste or if this is just an Olipop thing. It feels like I'm drinking a gingerbread cookie. It's really fantastic. I was skeptical. They sent us all samples on the Locked On Network. I'm willing to give it a try. They pay me. I'll give it a try. I'm a fan. I'm a huge fan, especially of this vintage cola flavor. I haven't tried all the flavors they gave us. They gave us a apple, which is interesting. But Olipop is a great soda alternative. Get your free can of Olipop. Just buy any 2 cans in store and they'll reimburse you for one. Head to drinkolipop.com/LockedOnNBA to claim your free can and find Olipop near you. That's drinkolipop.com/LockedOnNBA. Okay, we're going to hold our hands through this because I never thought that I would even be in a situation where I would consider Jordan Poole as the option for the Orlando Magic. But I sit in on Magic group chats. I sit in on Magic discussions. I hear what Magic fans are talking about. And yes, Jordan Poole's name comes up. There are people that support the Jordan Poole agenda. There are people that want a Poole party. And frankly, the Magic are so desperate for shooting, so desperate for guys who can score in bunches. I can't say no to the idea. I can't dismiss the idea hat out of hand as much as I want to. When you look at Jordan Poole's numbers last year, especially with the Washington Wizards, you see a player that took some meaningful steps. 20.5 points per game. Shot 37.8% on 9.1 three-point attempts. He's averaged more than 7 three-point attempts per game in his last 4 seasons. That's 2 with Golden State, 2 with Washington. He averaged 4.5 assists per game last year. Even added 1.7 stocks for good measure. That kind of looks like a player the Magic kind of want. The big detractions with Jordan Poole are purely kind of aesthetic. Yes, he's playing for the Wizards. The Wizards are not a good basketball team. Their offense was worse than the Magic's last year. So again, shooting alone isn't going to solve the problem. But what do the Magic need? And what do the Magic like? The Magic need shooting. Jordan Poole is a good shooter. He can go on serious runs as a shooter. And maybe if he's not playing the main offensive role, maybe he won't get 9 threes a game. Maybe he'll drop back down to 7. But he'll get higher quality shots, theoretically. And then there'll be games where he takes over. That's something the Magic need. The Magic like playmakers and guards who are big for their position. They're not traditional guards. The Magic probably need a traditional point guard. I'm not going to sit here and say that that's not a good idea. The Magic probably need a traditional point guard. But they probably don't mind going into the season with as many potential ball handlers and creators as possible. Paolo can handle the ball. Franz can handle the ball. Jalen Suggs can handle the ball. Jordan Poole can handle the ball. Between those 4 players, the Magic have 4 different guys who can organize and set up the offense. None of them may be good enough to do it on their own, and maybe that becomes a problem in the playoffs. But theoretically, that makes the Magic a better team. Right? Question mark? Right? It's all theory, of course. But then you start diving a little bit into the numbers. The Washington Wizards last year had a 105.8 offensive rating. With Jordan Poole on the floor, it was 104.8. Yes, the Wizards were somehow worse offensively with their best player. And look, like using the on-off stats just to get a picture, and I think they tell you some things. They don't tell you everything. Washington was a bad team. Jordan Poole was playing with bad players. So that isn't all on him. And certainly he is not designed to be the number one guy on your team. He's not designed to be the best player on your team. So those numbers may not mean very much. But then you get into the reputation issues. Jordan Poole makes bad shot decisions. He takes bad shots. He was, again, maybe it's a factor of him being with the Wizards. And if he came to Orlando and Paolo and Franz put him in his place and said, hey, you're third on this pecking order, fall in line, maybe he takes better shots. Maybe he makes smarter decisions. Maybe being back in a winning environment changes him. Because he was really effective for the Golden State Warriors when they won the championship. During their playoff run in 2022, he averaged 17 points per game, shot 39.1% on 5.8 threes per game. Bump that up by a 3, get that to 6 or 7 attempts. The Magic would gladly take that version of Jordan Poole. The Magic would gladly take that version of Jordan Poole. But of course, we all understand why he was traded from Golden State to begin with. And while that was now 3 years ago, that's still a red flag to be on a team with that much success. And I'm not going to blame a guy for wanting to take the money and wanting to say, especially a young player who says, I believe I can be the number one guy on a team. I want to test myself. I'm not going to blame a guy for that. But Jordan Poole was apparently so disruptive on a winning team, potentially not valuing winning, that Draymond Green punched him. Again, Draymond's the one at fault. I'm not sitting here blaming Jordan Poole, but you also got to understand your role. There's a way to do that. And if you watch Jordan Poole in Washington, there were a lot of times where he did not look like a serious basketball player, where it looked like he was gunning for his own stats. And if Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green can't get Jordan Poole to act serious, Paolo, Banchero, Franz Wagner don't have that clout yet. That would be my big concern. And frankly, that is my big concern with even thinking about Jordan Poole, is whether winning is important to him. And yeah, he's played for the Wizards the last 2 seasons. We don't know that answer. We know he can put up numbers. We know his offensive potential, but we don't know if winning is important for him. And then you look at some of the off-ball stuff. Jordan Poole last year shot just 36.6% on 4.1 catch and shoot 3-point attempts per game. Now, that probably goes up being a secondary player playing off of other players, but something to think about. Really, the only thing that I think works in Jordan Poole's favor, as far as him over the other players that we've talked about, is somewhat ironically his contract. Jordan Poole is set to make $31.8 million next year. Now, that is more than what Anthony Simons is going to make. Anthony Simons, I believe, is at $28 million. But he's got 2 years left on his deal. 31.8 next year, 34 in 2027. Theoretically, that gives the Magic some cost certainty. Because if the Magic go for an Anthony Simons, go for a Kobe White, go for a Colin Sexton, go for an Austin Reeves, all of those players are on expiring contracts. The Magic would be acquiring a player blind with really a very limited time to decide we're going to hand that player a $25 to $30 million contract, a fresh $25 to $30 million contract, and set ourselves somewhere else. The only thing that I think of that is a positive with Poole is you've got 2 years to make that decision. And again, this is why perhaps the Magic should have done something at the deadline regardless. Because when you get that early information, you get a year and a half before you have to decide on extension talks. The Magic could get Poole. He could be successful on a playoff team or more successful or more visible on a playoff team and flip him again. But I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. Poole does have a lot of skills the Magic need and want. But there's a lot of baggage that comes with him. So what about the other names that people keep bringing up to me? that I'm just like, no. We'll talk about bigs, big bigs, coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. The NBA Finals are in full swing, and every game is delivering highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Whether you're looking to take advantage of a player on a hot streak or looking to get in on the action at halftime with live in-game prop bets, or live mid-game prop bets and more, FanDuel has the action you're looking for. If you're new to FanDuel, it is the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. There are a lot of names out there. Like, there are a lot of players entering this trade market. We are expecting that this is going to be a very busy offseason. There's already even been some talk that the Kevin Durant trade is imminent. Like, it might happen before the finals end. And again, now we're looking at a long finals. With the Pacers up 2-1, we'll see what happens in game 4 on Friday. And so it's very clear the Magic are hunting for guards. Like, I don't think I'm breaking news there. It's very clear the Magic are looking for some guard help. And that's where a lot of our focus has been on. We think that the Magic need guards. I mean, like, their guards were pretty terrible in the playoffs. Like, Corey Joseph did the best he could. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope really struggled. Jalen Suggs was out. Cole Anthony struggled in the playoffs. The Magic guard situation is pretty bleak. And so whether it's adding Nickeil Alexander-Walker in free agency and trading for a guard, we think that's the direction the Magic are going. But there are a lot of other players out there. And boy, there have been some doozies that have hit my mentions. I want to get to 2 today, just to put these names to rest, because they are just straight up no's for me, dog. That's just straight up no for me, dog. The first is Lauri Markkanen. Now, Lauri Markkanen's name popped up most clearly in the Kevin O'Connor show the other day on Yahoo Sports. Kevin O'Connor and Chris Mannix of Sports Illustrated were having a discussion about Lauri Markkanen's availability and trade potential. And Kevin O'Connor was the one that brought up the Magic, and that's where he mentioned that the Magic have been trying to package Jonathan Isaac and Cole Anthony together, perhaps, to make a trade. And O'Connor just kind of did the thought experiment. Look, I'm not against thought experiments. Right now, this is thought experiment time. This is time to think about, okay, let's game this out. What does this look like? How do we do this? It's fine to explore things right now. We're still in this exploratory phase of the offseason, of like, okay, what's possible? What's out there? And he said, Isaac and Cole gets kind of close to where Lauri Markkanen is salary-wise. The Magic need shooting. They need shot makers. Markkanen is a former all-star. He's got the name. Look, there's 2 sides to this coin. There's 2 sides to this segment. First is, just because you're a star doesn't mean you're the right answer for the Magic. I get a lot of Trae Youngs. There'll probably be some Trae Youngs in the comments. I am not a believer that Trae Young is the answer for the Magic because, A, the salary. You're paying another player a near max salary. That's going to be really tough to stomach. Your second apron, you better be winning the championship with that team. On top of that, Trae Young becomes your system. Trae Young is not a bit player on a team. He is not playing off the ball very often. He hasn't done that in Atlanta. Maybe he can. Maybe he can. He didn't do it at Oklahoma. He is your system. And his defensive shortcomings, even on a good defensive team like Orlando, are really hard to hide. And so I don't see the Magic wanting to do anything really to interfere with Paolo and Franz. At the end of the day, this project is Paolo and Franz leading the way. So the Magic aren't going to trade for a ball-dominant guard. So throw your Trae Young out. Throw your LaMelo Ball out, honestly. Throw out those players who are just, they need the ball to be successful. Trae Young as a spot-up shooter, better last year than he was a year ago, 2 years ago. taken more of them, obviously. That's not his game. Trae Young does not fit the Magic to me. The same is true for Lauri Markkanen. As much as this is a thought experiment, and credit to Kevin O'Connor and Chris Mannix, they did the thought experiment. They talked it out, and they said, like, I don't know if this is it because, Lauri Markkanen would then have to play alongside Paolo and Franz. He's not really a center, not a great rebounder. Franz probably should be playing the 2 for very long. It doesn't make positional sense. And that's even before getting into Lauri Markkanen's salary. Lauri Markkanen had down year last year. He was playing with a back injury. Shot 34.6% from 3, only averaged 19 points per game, had back-to-back seasons, averaging 20 points per game before that, better than 39% from 3 in the previous 2 seasons. He had a down year last year because of a back injury. Played only 47 games. But Markkanen is owed a lot of money. I'm talking a lot of money. $195.9 million over the next 4 seasons. That's $46.4 million in 2026. You are a second apron team if you acquire Lauri Markkanen. And if you're a second apron team, you better be winning and competing for championships. The Magic aren't ready to do that. The Magic are not there yet. Lauri Markkanen, I think Bovada had the Magic 3rd in the odds to acquire Lauri Markkanen. Throw him out. He is not an option for the Orlando Magic. Doesn't make positional sense. Doesn't make offensive sense. Doesn't make financial sense. Bad idea. The other bad idea I keep running across, and this is the next phase, dump the nostalgia, guys. Like nostalgia is great for jerseys, not good for acquiring basketball players. I see a lot of fans pitch the Magic reacquiring Nikola Vučević. And look, if you've listened to this show for the length of time that I've been doing this show, you know Vuč is my guy. I will defend Nikola Vučević to the end of the earth. That dude put in his time with this team, gave everything he could for this city, gave everything he could for this franchise, put him in the Orlando Magic Hall of Fame. I think that is my one controversial take on the Orlando Magic Hall of Fame. Probably Evan Fournier, because I think I respect those guys. I think Evan Fournier, Aaron Gordon, and Nikola Vučević should all be in the Orlando Magic Hall of Fame, despite the lack of team success they had. But Nikola Vučević absolutely should be 2-time All-Star. I don't think the Magic should touch him. Expiring contract, so just dumping salary. He's coming off a pretty down year by his standards, certainly. Average 18.5 points per game, 10.1 rebounds per game, so solid there. 40.2% three-point shooter on 4.4 attempts per game. He can still do all those things. But like he was in Orlando, his defense just isn't there anymore. If it was ever there, Steve Clifford did a great job. Billy Donovan did a great job covering for Nikola Vučević's defensive weaknesses. But the fact of the matter is, Orlando needs a strong defensive center. Orlando needs a center who is going to be able to defend the perimeter and defend the paint effectively. Because despite Paolo being a better defender, and he's improved greatly as a defender, Paolo's not a stopper. They need someone in the paint. They need that versatility. They need strong defenders around Paolo. And Nikola Vučević would change the character of this team's defense. Not to mention, he is a rental. They're not re-signing him. They're not keeping a 32, 33-year-old center. And so, again, nostalgia is beautiful sometimes. It's also really dangerous sometimes. And I think this is an instance where it would be dangerous for the Magic. That's been a name that I've seen, bandied about among Magic fans. I don't like it. So as we close out this episode, as we close out the names that we want to avoid and not really think about, but we kind of have to, let's part with this. There are those obvious names. There are these obvious names. But honestly, in all likelihood, there's something we're not thinking of. There's a player out there that is available that we don't know about. Maybe it is Drew Holiday. Again, contract worries me with it. Maybe Derek White is available. CJ McCollum is another player that's been pushed around, and New Orleans talked to me about him during the Locked On Mock Draft, and I said, I'm not really that interested in CJ McCollum anymore. There are players out there that we're not thinking about, that we're not approaching, that we're not discussing with the level of seriousness that perhaps the Magic front office is. But here's the thing. Orlando is balancing a lot of needs and a lot of principles. And ultimately, the Magic are going to have to balance what they're willing to give up to get what they need. It does sound like the Magic are willing to sacrifice a bit of their defense to make their offense better. But they're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. They know their defense is their ticket. And if they drop from 2nd to 5th to make their offense 15th or higher, that makes them a 50-win team. That makes them a better team. What they won't do is willingly drop their defense to 10th while only seeing their offense jump up to 18, 19, 20. That's the difficult balance they have to make. That's the difficult thing in front of them. And unfortunately, even among the guys that we're talking about and know about or think we know about, that sacrifice, that debate is present in all of them. And so frankly, while the names we talked about today are probably hard no's or very comfortably no, the Magic have to realize that even the guy they say yes to isn't going to check all the boxes. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Magic. You can, of course, find me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD and on Blue Sky at PhilipRR. You can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all Filming Signal podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can find us there on Twitter at OMagicDaily. Don't forget, you can also check out Locked On Magic on YouTube. Just search for Locked On Magic. For even more Orlando Magic content, be sure to check out my Patreon page. I am doing my player evaluation series. I'm going to try and wrap that up next week because we can get deep into draft stuff over the next few weeks, but I'm moving away from my player evaluations here. You can find that at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. Pinned to the top of that page are the 12 players I would target if I were the Orlando Magic. I would limit myself to those 12 players. There's maybe one or two I would add to that list now that I've thought about it a little bit more, but I have 12 players that you need to know for the draft. You can find that again at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. As always, thank you for your. Now that you're done listening to me, go make Locked On NBA Big Board your second listen of the day. The NBA draft expert, Rafael Barlow, reacts to every workout, interview, and rumor leading up to the NBA draft. Find Locked On NBA Big Board on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. That's going to do it for me today, though. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Next week on Locked On Magic, we're going to talk about Franz Wagner. He's committed to play Eurobasket now. I've seen people react to that. You're wrong. He should do it. We'll talk about Franz Wagner, what he has to do this offseason to get to the bottom of his shooting. We'll talk about that next week. But until then, have a great weekend for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic. This has been Philip Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.